Look at all this stuff. Hey guys, Dave here, and today I'm gonna go over my top 12 must-have bar items that any home bartender will need to make drinks like a pro. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. Number 1, the mixing glass. Okay, when it comes to mixing glasses, you've got a couple of choices. And your first one is just to use a pint glass. I mean, I've used these for years behind the bar, and they work perfectly fine, especially in a high volume environment where you are lining up tons and tons of glasses to make all those drinks. But there are some drawbacks. They can be a little bit off balance. They wobble and they're not very big, so if you try to do 2 cocktails at once, ain't gonna happen. I prefer, especially at home, to use a cocktail-specific mixing glass. I think these things are great. One of the benefits is that they have a wider base, so you're not going to worry about tipping them over as often. They're also heavier. They've got more weight to them, so they're not gonna slide around while you're mixing a drink. You can also get them in different sizes, so if you want to make more cocktails at one time, you have that option. Another cool feature that they have is that there's typically like a little lip that allows you to pour more accurately when you're straining off your cocktail. And they're just easier to look at. Like this guy's got this etching around the outside. A lot of them are decorative like that. Just makes for a better experience for, the people who are watching you make the drinks. They do come in glass or in crystal, so make sure if you buy a crystal, don't put it in the dishwasher. Oh, and some of these do have a seam that runs on the inside from manufacturing. If you can, stay away from that. It's going to kind of affect the stirring and make it really kind of clicky and not smooth. All in all, highly recommend cocktail-specific mixing glass as a must-have tool for your home bar. Number 2, the bar spoon. Bar spoons vary in appearance and in size. They can range from 10 inches all the way up to like 2 feet. But despite their differences, they have some things in common. Most bar spoons are going to have this sort of spiral design that runs down the length of the body. And that actually will help you to stir your cocktail. So it kind of swirls around in your fingers as you stir and around the outside of the glass. So you want to make sure that the spiral is not too exaggerated. You don't want to end up getting, cuts on your finger. So pay attention to that. The spiral can also be used to pour liquid down into a cocktail. Another thing that bar spoons typically have in common is that on the opposite end of the spoon, there will be some sort of decorative or functional weight. Now the weight serves as a counterbalance when you're stirring, but each one of those things can be a different tool. This, for example, is a stir rod, so you can use it for stirring. I have another spoon right here that has a sort of nickel-sized plate on the end. This is typically used for layering, but I like to use it to smash up sugar cubes or press mint, so it really is a functional tool. One more thing about bar spoons is that they measure at about a teaspoon. However, not all bar spoons are exactly the same, and they're not a perfect measuring device, so you are gonna be kind of eyeballing with them. Just keep that in mind when you're making drinks. Either way, they're a great tool to have and a must for any home bar. Number 3, your shaker. Okay, shakers are another one of those items where you have a few choices. Now, there's 2 main kinds. The first is called a cobbler shaker. Now, a cobbler shaker is a 3-piece shaker, which consists of the body, a lid, and then a cap over the lid. When you take the cap off, there's actually a built-in strainer, which is pretty handy. But they can be a little cumbersome, a little bit more difficult to clean, and a little finicky when it comes to getting them open when they're cold. So, I actually prefer the Boston shaker. Now, the Boston shaker is sort of the gold standard for bartenders around the world. And the Boston shaker is a 2-piece shaker. Now there's 2 ways to use the Boston shaker. The first is called tin on glass, where you use a shaker tin and a pint glass. And the second we call tin on tin, which is a shaker tin and a smaller tin called a cheater tin. Now tin on glass has its benefits and drawbacks. In a high volume bar situation where you're gonna be lining up a whole lot of pint glasses to make a lot of cocktails, it makes total sense. But remember, glass is heavy, so that's gonna wear your elbows out, and glass chips and breaks. And that's kind of the biggest issue I have with this version. The tin on tin version is the version that I like for a home bar. First of all, you're not gonna have to worry about any broken glass. Second of all, it's lighter to shake, so it's easier on the old joints. And the metal on metal seal makes it a lot less likely that you're gonna have a leak. And even though it is sealed, it's actually really easy to open. You just take your thumb, press against the seal, you get a pop, and it opens right up. So this is definitely the way I would go. Boston Shaker, tin on tin for your home bar. Number 4, the cocktail strainer. Okay, there are 2 types of cocktail strainers, and the first is called a julep strainer. And a julep strainer is basically just a spoon-style strainer with slots in it. And it's meant to go over the top of your mixing glass. Works perfectly fine in situations where you don't have any smashed up ingredients or ice crystals. But beyond that, you're gonna need something different, which is the next strainer, the Hawthorne strainer. Now the Hawthorne strainer is actually a 2-piece strainer. It consists of the body and a spring. And it's actually meant to go over your shaker tin, so it fits perfectly. And there are 2 ways that you can use it. The open gate, where you're not compressing the spring or blocking the flow, and the closed gate, where you apply pressure, compress the spring, block the flow, and create a tighter strain, not allowing as much stuff to go through. The open gate is going to pour faster, the closed gate is going to pour slower. Now this style of strainer is the style that I would recommend if you had to pick between the 2. No reason to say you can't get both, but if you're going to have a home bar, you're going to need a Hawthorne strainer. Number 5, the double strainer. It's basically a fine mesh screen that you pour the contents of your cocktail through from your strainer to add an extra layer of protection against all the smashed up bits of herb, pip, pulp, seeds, and even ice crystals that you don't want getting into your cocktail. Now it's important to consider that these come in different shapes and sizes, and I personally like a cone shape and a deeper cone so I have more surface area, so more fluid can go through and I can get a faster pour, because working fast is important to me. But no matter what style you like to use, it is a must-have tool. So get yourself a double strainer. Number 6, the jigger. You're gonna need to know how much of what you're putting into your cocktails. And that's where jiggers come in, because jiggers are how you measure. And there's really 2 kinds of jiggers. The first is called a single jigger. And there's lots of different styles of a single jigger, but basically it is a single bucket that you fill and you dump. This particular one has markings on the inside. It goes from about 1/4 ounce up to 2 ounces. The other style is a double jigger. Now a double jigger has a bucket on one side and a bucket on the other. And usually it is 1 measure on one side and maybe a half measure on the other. Probably the most popular version of the double jigger is called the Japanese style jigger. And you'll notice that it's a lot more narrow and taller than a regular jigger. And what this means is that it's a little bit more difficult to splash because the cup is so deep, and the smaller surface area at the top makes it a little bit more forgiving when it comes to spillage. What's also neat about this jigger is you can kind of create this cascading effect depending on the technique that you use, but a lot of bartenders like to do that and people enjoy watching. Now the jigger that I've been using lately is the OXO double jigger, and I really like this one for a couple of reasons. One, it's got a cool rubber grip, which just makes it a little bit easier to handle, especially if your fingers are wet. And it's got all the markings that are laser etched in, which makes it really easy to measure. And it actually has a 1/3 ounce measure, which is the only jigger I've ever seen that had that. So it's kind of up to you on what style of jigger you like to use. Just make sure you figure out what you're comfortable with and always measure what's going into your cocktail. Number 7, the Muddler. Muddlers come in all different shapes and sizes and all different kinds of materials, but basically they are all the same thing. They're just a rod that you use to smash ingredients to extract oils and flavors that you otherwise couldn't get into your cocktail. And I think wood is a great material because it's soft on glass and it's easy on the hands. But you want to make sure that if you get a wood muddler, it doesn't have a coating on it. Stay away from coatings. If you've ever seen one that's been used over time, the coating comes off, that's going into people's drinks. Not a good thing. I actually like to use a synthetic. So my choice muddler is an aluminum body with a plastic muddle head. I find that it's easier to clean, it holds up longer than the wood, and it just looks kind of slick and cool. It's really up to you on which kind of muddler you want to use. Just make sure that you have one. They're a necessary tool. Number 8, the peeler. There's no way to get around from needing citrus peels in your bar. So you're gonna need a peeler, and there's really 2 main kinds that I use. The first is called a straight swivel peeler, and it looks a little bit like a potato peeler. And the other is called a Y peeler. And I actually like the Y peeler the best, I think, in a bar setting. And it's exactly the same thing. Basically, you hold on to it, you just peel in a different direction towards yourself. Oh, and you definitely want to make sure that you keep these guys really clean because the oil and debris will start to build up on the blade and it will dull them and they just won't work as well. So find what you like and keep it clean. And make sure you got a peeler in your arsenal. Number 9, a bar knife. You're definitely gonna need a nice sharp knife dedicated to cutting ingredients like citrus in your bar. I personally like to use a smaller knife. This is a paring knife with a 4-inch blade. I stay away from the serrated blades, but you can use a serrated blade. Lots of people swear by them. Make sure you've got a grip that doesn't get really slippery when it's wet, and always keep this thing sharp. A dull knife is a dangerous knife. I had a friend that I worked with, and he used to keep a sharpener on his keychain. So whenever we were behind the bar, if that knife was just anything less than razor sharp, he'd pull that thing out and sharpen the blade, and we'd be good to go. Number 10, a juicer. Okay, fresh juice is best, so you're gonna need a juicer. They come in all different shapes and sizes. I find that the one in the bar that works the best for me is sort of a middle ground. It can take small oranges, lemons, and limes. I like these elbow style juicers because you can use them on the fly when you're making a cocktail, or you can batch out juice ahead of time, which is what I like to do sometimes for this channel. When it comes to caring for them, just make sure you clean them after every use so that the oils don't build up, and they should last you a very long time if you find a high quality one. Number 11, the Lewis bag. Okay, I wasn't even sure if I should put this on my list, but honestly, once you have a Lewis bag, you will not want to be without one. They are a must if you're gonna be making tiki drinks because so many tiki drinks use crushed ice. So what these are basically a bag where you put the ice into the bag and then you use a mallet to smash it to the desired crush consistency. They're typically made of a material that helps to whisk away the moisture and prevent the ice from turning into slush very quickly. And they come in all different sizes. So you can get a single drink or you can get something much bigger than the one that I have. When it comes to caring for it, just make sure that it's completely dry before you put it away. I actually keep mine in the freezer, so it's never an issue for me, but you do you. Number 12, a microplane. Okay, so this tool is good for grating dried spices. There's a lot of cocktails out there that require cinnamon or nutmeg, and this is just one of those things that you need in order to get that finishing touch on the drink. There's other culinary uses for it too, but for the bar, it works really well. So get yourself a microplane zester. Well, that's it guys, and that is my episode for the top 12 must-have bar tools that anybody would need in order to make just great cocktails at home. I hope that you enjoyed the episode today, and if there's anything on the list that I missed that you use, go ahead and let me know down in the comments. That'd be great. And while you're there, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more Drinks with Dave, and until next time, cheers.